We'll be starting here in about 5 minutes, so enjoy the music.
Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Through the gifts of technology, we also gather virtually to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Welcome to all those who are joining us in this way today. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Good morning. I'm Don Dickey, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here on this cold, cold day where the high will be in the single digits and they won't be positive. For the one or two of you who did not watch the Chiefs game last night, they won. Some of you may be new here. Welcome. We want you to feel comfortable here and able to ask questions and get to know us. Would any members of All Souls who would love for a newcomer to talk with them, please stand or raise your hand. And those of you who may be new, take note of who raised their hand, and also understand the other people might be a little shy, but once you get them in a conversation, they're very warm and caring people. Your presence, each of you, enriches all of us and our time together. Bring your whole self, your truth of happiness and sadness and fear, your hopes, your worries, your curiosity, and the tenderness of your heart. Who you are right now is just who you need to be. Today, in our gallery around the lobby, the Focus on Abortion photojournalism exhibit closes at 2 p.m. If you have not read the stories told about the women and the people who appear in the pictures, take a little time to read their story. It's very enlightening. Sharing the pulpit with Reverend Kendyl today is Brother Tai Amri Spann-Ryan, who is a teacher and a pastor. He is a Universalist whose primary spiritual path is of the African Yoruba tradition of Ifa. Please help me welcome Brother Tai Amri back to All Souls.
Good morning, everyone. Please stay warm. So, today I'm going to be opening with the pouring of libations. To remember our ancestors, those who have laid out the blueprint and foundation for a beloved community on this MLK weekend, we pour libations. The water is sacred. The earth is sacred. The plants are sacred, and we are all connected. We acknowledge that Dr. King did not create a vision or accomplish a work on his own. And so libations are poured for him and all those who guided him. For Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we say Ashe. For Martin Luther King Sr., we say Ashe. For Alberta Williams King, we say Ashe. For Dr. Benjamin Hayes, we say Ashe. For Dr. Howard Thurman, we say Ashe. For Vernon Johns, we say Ashe. For Mordecai Johnson, we say Ashe. For Reinhold Niebuhr, we say Ashe. For Paul Tillich, we say Ashe. For Ella Baker, we say Ashe. For Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah, we say Ashe. For Bayard Rustin, we say Ashe. For Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, we say Ashe. For Malcolm X, we say Ashe. For John Lewis, we say Ashe. For Thich Nhat Hanh, we say Ashe. For Coretta Scott King, we say Ashe. For all those who marched, fought, and worked for freedom, we say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe. Truly, we have received a dear heritage of instruction and example in the holy work of healing and reconciliation that has been set before us in our days. In honor of the ancestors who bequeathed to us their hopes for a future they themselves would not see, we kindle this chalice flame. May its light continue to guide and inspire us as we persevere on our journey together, marching on to Freedom Land. I invite you now to rise and join us in the affirmation of our covenant and then in song. Together as a community we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing
Thank you. I'm thinking about being a little one myself and my father taking me to see speakers on MLK Day and always singing that song. Brings me back to those days. And now I want to bring us back into our little selves and all of the little selves in this congregation today and online who are joining us. My little ones are online watching me right now. Hi, baby girls. We're going to hear a story called I Am Brave, a little book about Martin Luther King Jr. by Brad Meltzer. I am Martin Luther King Jr. Come dream with me. A dream is an adventure that you build inside your mind. Can you count all of my books? My dreams grew big with books. Even as a kid, I knew words had power. Start with hope, add some faith. You'll be amazed at what you'll find. Give a hug to someone you love. My family taught me it's better to have more love in your life and that you must never feel that you are less than anyone else. My dreams are of love, of making peace and shining bright. Lift those who are around you. Be brave and do what's right. Until justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Back then, not everyone was allowed to sit at the front of the bus. To protest those rules, one of my first big speeches demanded that people be treated fairly. One day, you will help others. One day, you'll take a stand. Hold hands. We are all sisters and brothers. It's how we'll reach the promised land. At the March on Washington, thousands of people came together to demand that everyone be treated equal. Be brave, my little dreamer. We need you more than ever. The very best dream of all is the one we dream together. I am Martin Luther King Jr., and I know nothing can stop our dream.
Let us join together and sing our children out to their classes.
Go now in peace, may love guide all your ways. Beauty be the blessing of your nights and days. Truth on your lips and kindness in your deeds. Faith to follow where the human spirit leads.
You've all heard expressions, a blessing and a curse, a double-edged sword. We have a situation here at All Souls that fits this description. For the blessing, we have people who respect education. They respect one another, raising loving, responsible children, working toward peace, both in the community and in the world, welcoming diversity, not fearing it, making decisions with facts and reason. So what could possibly go wrong? These people I describe primarily are liberal, and they have a quirk in their personality. They like to support financially the things they approve of and not the things they don't approve of. So it often requires these items be presented one at a time. So they will make a pledge and give a chunk of change to the church, but then over time, they will give more. The reason being, there were some programs they approved of. Okay, more bucks. And others they don't. The problem is we have to have lots and lots of special fundraisers. If All Souls were an automobile, good old internal combustion, okay, we've got the car, we have to provide for the insurance, expected maintenance, oil changes, de-icer fluid for the windshield wipers. But we got a problem. We're driving around on the spare tire because we hit a pothole, and not only did it ruin the tire, it ruined the rim. So we didn't budget for that, so we're going to have to drive around and hope nothing breaks down until we can have another special fundraiser. I mean, who says UUs don't pray? So here's the problem. We can't have a fundraiser right now because we just had one to pay for the extra gas to take a carload of people to General Assembly. And then we had a special fundraiser to replace the water pump, which wasn't expected to go bad, so we had to get that going so we can still have a car. Each of these items takes a lot of time and effort. If those of you who are members here would consider upping your pledge, so not just the contribution today, but in general, and convince yourself that something in the budget that you really didn't approve of, your money didn't go for that. But the things you really like, that's where your money went. And what will happen is you leverage the value of that contribution. By giving it up front, the time and energy that went into the special fundraisers can go to doing the work of the church, both for our members and for the larger community. So this today is for the general fund. Consider, not only today, but in the larger context of your annual contributions. The offering will now be given and very gratefully received.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Until the killing of black men, black mother sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mother sons. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gate, the older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light to just shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way our struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. Sometimes I can be quite difficult. I'll bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Please join me in the dedication of our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
In 1966, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King addressed the gathered delegates at the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association in Hollywood, Florida, warning them not to sleep through the revolution, which he considered was then underway. He set forth his vision of a global, beloved community in which racism should have been dismantled. The following year, he would reiterate these thoughts for a wider and more enduring audience in his final book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? In it, he wrote, "However deeply American Negroes are caught in the struggle to be at last at home in our homeland of the United States, we cannot ignore the larger world house in which we are also dwellers. Equality with whites will not solve the problems of either whites or Negroes if it means equality in a world stricken by poverty and in a universe doomed to extinction by war. Human beings, searching a century ago as now for better understanding, had no television, no radios, no telephones, and no motion pictures through which to communicate. 100 years ago, military men had not yet developed the terrifying weapons of warfare that we know today. Not the bomber, an airborne fortress raining down death, nor napalm, that burner of all things and flesh in its path. In the years ahead, astronauts and cosmonauts will probably walk comfortably across the uncertain pathways of the moon. Supersonic jets will fly from New York to London in 2.5 hours. Automation and cybernation will make it possible for working people to have undreamed of amounts of leisure time. All this is a dazzling picture of the large world house in which we are all living. Along with scientific and technological revolution, we have also witnessed a worldwide freedom revolution over the last few decades. The present upsurge of the Negro people of the United States grows out of a deep and passionate determination to make freedom and equality a reality here and now. In one sense, the civil rights movement in the United States is a special American phenomenon, which must be understood in the light of American history and dealt with in terms of the American situation. But on another and more important level, what is happening in the United States today is a significant part of a world development. What we are seeing now is a freedom explosion, the realization of an idea whose time has come. The deep rumbling of discontent that we hear today is the thunder of disinherited masses rising from dungeons of oppression to the bright hills of freedom. All over the world, like a fever, freedom is spreading in the widest liberation movement in history. The great masses of people are determined to end the exploitation of their races and lands. They are awake and moving toward their goal like a tidal wave. You can hear them rumbling in every village street, on the docks, in the houses, among the students, in the churches, and at political gatherings. For several centuries, the direction of history flowed from the nations and societies of Western Europe into the rest of the world in conquests of various sorts. That period, the era of colonialism, is at an end. The earth is being redistributed. We are shifting our basic outlooks. One of the great liabilities of history is that all too many people fail to remain awake through great periods of social change. Every society has its protectors of the status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent, who are notorious for sleeping through revolutions. But today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. The large house in which we live demands that we transform this worldwide neighborhood into a worldwide brotherhood. Together, we must learn to live as brothers, or together we will be forced to perish as fools. We must work passionately and indefatigably to bridge the gulf between our scientific progress and our moral progress. One of the great problems of humanity is that we suffer from a poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. The richer we have become materially, the poorer we have become morally and spiritually. Everyone lives in two realms, the internal and the external. The internal is that realm of spiritual ends expressed in art, literature, morals, and religion. The external is that complex of devices, techniques, mechanism, and instrumentalities by me. We have allowed the means by which we live to outdistance the ends for which we live. So much of modern life can be summarized in that suggestive phrase of Emerson: improved means to an unimproved end. This is the serious predicament, the deep and haunting problem confronting modern man. Enlarged material powers spell enlarged peril if there is not a proportionate growth of the soul. When the external of human nature subjugates the internal, dark storm clouds begin to form. Western civilization is particularly vulnerable at this moment, for our material abundance has brought us neither peace of mind nor serenity of spirit. This does not mean that we must turn back the clock of scientific progress. No one can overlook the wonders that science has wrought for our lives. The automobile will not abdicate in favor of the horse and buggy, or the train in favor of the stagecoach, or the tractor in favor of the hand plow, or the scientific method in favor of ignorance and superstition. But our moral and spiritual lag must be redeemed. When scientific power outruns moral power, we end up with guided missiles and misguided men. When we foolishly minimize the internal of our lives and maximize the external, we sign the warrant for our own day of doom.
Among the moral imperatives of our time, we are challenged to work all over the world with unshakable determination to wipe out the last vestiges of racism. As early as 1906, W.E.B. Du Bois prophesied that the problem of the 20th century will be the problem of the color line. Now, as we stand 2/3 into this exciting period of history, we know full well that racism is still that hound of hell that dogs the tracks of our civilization. Racism is no mere American phenomenon. Its vicious grasp knows no geographical boundaries. In fact, racism and its perennial ally, economic exploitation, provide the key to understanding most of the international complications of this generation. In country after country, we see white men building empires on the sweat and suffering of colored people. During the Kennedy administration, there was some awareness of the problems that breed in the racist and exploitative conditions throughout the colored world, and a temporary concern emerged to free the United States from its complicity. Though the effort was only on a diplomatic level, there remained little or no attempt to deal with the economic aspects of racist exploitation. We have been notoriously silent about the more than $700 million of American capital which props up the system of apartheid, not to mention the billions of dollars in trade and the military alliances which are maintained under the pretext of fighting communism in Africa. In Latin America, we see racism in its more sophisticated form, neocolonialism. The Bible and the annals of history are replete with tragic stories of one brother robbing another of his birthright and thereby ensuring generations of strife and enmity. We can hardly escape such a judgment in Latin America any more than we have been able to escape the harvest of hate sown in Vietnam by a century of French exploitation. There is a convenient temptation to attribute the current turmoil and bitterness throughout the world to the presence of a communist conspiracy to undermine Europe and America. But the potential explosiveness of our world situation is much more attributable to disillusionment with the promises of Christianity and technology. Former generations could not conceive the luxuries of the modern world, but their children now take the vision of wealth, health, and happiness and demand that it become a reality. And when they look around and see that the only people who do not share in the abundance of Western technology are colored people, it is an almost inescapable conclusion that their condition and their exploitation are somehow related to their color and the racism of the white Western world. This is a treacherous foundation for a world house. Racism can well be the corrosive evil that will bring down the curtain on Western civilization. Arnold Toynbee has said that some 26 civilizations have arisen upon the face of the earth. Almost all of them have descended into the junk heaps of destruction. The decline and fall of these civilizations, according to Toynbee, was not caused by external invasions, but by internal decay. They failed to respond creatively to the challenges impinging upon them. If Western civilization does not now respond creatively to the challenge to banish racism, some future historian will have to say that a great civilization died because it lacked the soul and commitment to make justice a reality for all people.
I invite you all to be in a spirit of prayer and meditation as we hear the words of the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. Guiding spirits, fresh from the world with the smell of life upon us, we make an act of prayer in the silence of this place. Our minds are troubled because the anxieties of our hearts are deep and searching. We are stifled by the odor of death which envelops our earth, where in so many places sibling fights sibling. The panic of fear, the torture of insecurity, the ache of hunger, all have fed and rekindled ancient hatreds and long-forgotten memories of old struggles, when the world was young and children were but dimly aware of the presence of the Spirit in its midst. For all this, we seek reconciliation. There is no country that is without guilt, that has not harmed another, that is not proud and arrogant. We are led by the selfish and greedy, which harbor in the hearts and minds such that makes for bitterness, hatred, and revenge. While we wait for the presence of peace, search our spirits and grant our minds the guidance and the wisdom that will teach us the way to take, without which there can be no peace and no confidence anywhere. Teach us how to put at the disposal of the purposes of peace the fruits of our industry, the products of our minds, the vast wealth of our land, and the resources of our spirit. Grant unto us the courage to follow the illumination of this hour to the end, that we shall not lead death to anyone's door, but rather may we strengthen the hands of all in high places and in common tasks seek to build a friendly world, a friendly people beneath a friendly sky. This is the simple desire of our hearts, which we share in thanksgiving and confidence. Aho, Ashe, Amen.
I was born by the river in a little tent, oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Yes, it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me not to hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. There've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long. Oh, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Yes, it will. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come.
I imagine that it would have been difficult not to have respected Whitney Young in the 1960s. He was a familiar figure to many of those involved in the movement for civil rights, president of the National Urban League, dean of the School of Social Work at Atlanta University, colleague and supporter of Martin Luther King, advisor to President Lyndon Johnson, father of 2 daughters, trustee of his church, advocate for Black professionals, especially in social work, architecture, and academia. Together with Dr. King, Whitney Young believed that the problem of racism had a spiritual component and that the solution to that problem would require a spiritual basis as well. Whitney and his wife Margaret were the first Black members of the United Liberal Church in Atlanta, where he served on the Board of Trustees, and which would change its name in 1965 to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta. I don't have access to many details about the Young family's relationship to that church community, but one thing that we do know is that during the time of their membership and Whitney's tenure as a trustee, the congregation stopped holding their annual all-member picnic celebration in segregated Atlanta city parks. That detail makes me think and makes me wonder, what must it have been like for all of them before that decision was made? Did they ask for some sort of special exemption so that Whitney and Margaret and their girls could attend the event with their friends? If they did, and if the permission was granted, did the Black family come? If so, was it nerve-wracking for everyone, wondering whether there might be violence from the same people who bombed churches and murdered Black activists? Did the Youngs just stay home to let everyone else have a relaxed time together and to keep themselves safe? What would have been said about them in that request? They're not like other colored folks. They really are quite respectable. Did Whitney, as a member of the board, ever have to write that letter himself or sign it? Was it he who made the motion to find an alternative? Or did he simply understand that it's nothing personal, we've just always done it this way? In short, it makes me think about what it meant and what it means to build a beloved community, and the kinds of awkward questions and awkward feelings that might be encountered in that process, because it's not all sweetness and light, even with the highest of hopes and the best of intentions. Eventually, the church decided, in the words of one historian, that it was not enough for them to be desegregated, that what they intended was to be integrated, and that should mean getting past the annual picnic dilemma, even if it was inconvenient, even if it meant giving up comfortable traditions. There was a tension that both Whitney Young and Martin Luther King, whose birthday we observe as a federal holiday tomorrow, recognized when they asserted that the goal of their protests and activism was not merely legal equality and justice, but an actual transformation in the relationships between white people and people of color, and not just in America, but around the globe. They called it by many names, as we do still today. Freedom, they called it, and respect. Peace, said Dr. King, and nonviolence. Not just an end to the terror of lynching, but to all the colonial oppressions that the powers of Europe had imposed upon people of darker skin in Africa and Asia and the Western Hemisphere. Yes, justice. Yes, freedom. Yes, equality. But more than that, a recognition that we are all in the same boat together, all human, all bound together in a single garment of destiny, incapable of creating any future for ourselves that does not include each other. I believe that this is what we are talking about when we use the expression beloved community in our time. It is the hope that lies in our commitment to the call for dismantling racism, as expressed in the 8th principle of contemporary Unitarian Universalism. As he grew into the maturity of his calling as a prophet, Dr. King found that his vision broadened to demand peace and the cessation of violence as a foundation for the realization of the community in which divine love and righteousness has always called for humanity to live. Our own spiritual ancestors of the Enlightenment once insisted that the first demand of reason is peace, and it is not unlikely that peace may also be the first necessity for beloved community. Today, as we celebrate the memory of those whose prophetic witness, like Dr. King, have nurtured our awareness of what is required of us as we seek a viable and spiritually sustainable future for our shared humanity on this globe, we welcome the reflections of poet, educator, and activist Tai Amri Spann-Ryan, who nurtures beloved community as a preschool teacher and youth pastor, and as co-founder and coordinator of the Black Literature and Arts Collective in Lawrence, Kansas. Tai Amri, what should we be remembering of Dr. King's legacy this weekend?
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Church, for allowing me to be in this space again with you, for hearing your beautiful choir, being in this space. In setting upon the work to build a beloved community, I believe Dr. King is with us today. In an article in 1966, he wrote, "Our goal is to create a beloved community, and this will require a qualitative change in our souls as well as a quantitative change in our lives." Thus, his conception of the beloved community outlines two essential aspects. Both aspects are connected in that we cannot create a beloved community when we are more concerned with our monetary profit than we are with the well-being of others. While the beloved community is credited to Dr. King, who focused a great deal of his writings and his activism to its creation, it was actually coined by a Harvard philosophical professor named Josiah Royce, who believed that there was an ideal beloved community made up of all those who were dedicated to the cause of loyalty and truth. The perspective of Professor Royce was this: my life means nothing, either theoretically or practically, unless I am a member of a community. Professor Royce, a white man born in 1855 in California, was somehow able to tap into a wisdom seen also in Africa, which teaches us that we are all one another's responsibility. And as individuals, our purpose is to be in community with others. Why might we have this purpose? Well, when I was in seminary in Berkeley, I began to see clearly that for me, the idea of God only made sense when considering all of creation to be God's body. It is hard to look out into the injustice and suffering of the world and understand this as something God would want. However, when I began to see the creation to be God's body, asking a question like, why is there homelessness? The answer soon became, because we, as God's hands, have not created a world where all people can be housed. In the beloved community, no human is incapable of entering into this divine purpose. And at the same time, no human is capable of fulfilling their divine purpose individually. For Dr. King, we are tied together both in our ability to create change and our responsibility when we fail to do so. So I am known as a blurred or a black nerd. I love science fiction, fantasy, and superhero movies, like really love them. I love getting deeply immersed in their words and their possibilities. The other part of what that means is that I cannot do so without bringing in my blackness. My thought processes look something like this. Why is Batman so cool? And is Batman still cool if you're a black person bending the rule of law for the survival of self and to take care of your family? I also bring my blurtiness to topics of social justice. Like, as much as I love speculative fiction, I also love the philosophies of Dr. King and those who inspired him and were inspired by him. And with this blurtiness, I ask, how do the teachings of Dr. King apply to the current moment? And what does it mean when someone else uses the teachings of Dr. King? For this reason, I am very wary of anyone who thinks that Batman or Dr. King are infallible and why they think so. For example, the number of times I hear that Dr. King did not care about one's color of skin but the content of character is extremely problematic. Not just because of the number of times this ideology has been used to strip and deny equal rights, but also because it is a denial of something that I think is essential to understanding Dr. King and the beloved community. Dr. King publicly proclaimed his desire to ceaselessly search for the beloved community in his speech, Birth of a New Nation. In it, he painted a beautiful picture of freedom and liberation, but he also was quick to point out that there is no crown without a cross. As he wrote, I wish we could get to Easter without going to Good Friday, but history tells us that we got to go to Good Friday before we can get to Easter. Anyone who thinks we get to live in a world where we are only judged by our character doesn't really understand that that doesn't happen unless we deal with the legacy and harm of racial injustice, sexism, trans and homophobia, economic exploitation, and environmental degradation. I find it suspect when anyone preaches the beloved community without outlining what Dr. King called the three evils of racism, poverty caused by extreme materialism, and war and militarism. I was raised as a pacifist in a Quaker household, in a Quaker community, in the Quaker stronghold of the Philadelphia region, to believe that there is no occasion for war. While I have never in my lifetime seen a war that I believed was worth fighting, I have also not found reason to judge most individuals who do. The fact of the matter is, when I meet an individual who has risked their life in battle, I respect them for living a life that I have not known. I see obvious genius in the military, and to deny it would feel disingenuous. However, I also believe that peacemakers are vastly underestimated. For example, I grew up singing, "I ain't gonna study war no more." And I believe that there's a misunderstanding when people hear that song. You see, in the Black community, study has a double meaning. Of course, on one hand, it means to learn and research, but it also means to pay attention or give significance to. I can hear the voice of my mother clearly when I am throwing a fit over some item I really want but don't need, saying, "I ain't studying you." What she meant was not, "I'm not learning and researching you." She meant, "I'm not paying attention to your tantrum." It wasn't that she didn't see me. It was that she refused to see the greedy, petulant parts of me. My father is the most extreme pacifist I know. He does not believe in violence in any situation for any reason, not even in self-defense. But I do not know anyone who knows more about the Civil War than he does. He has whole libraries dedicated to it. He has visited battle sites and has written books about it. But does he study war? No, he does not. He studies peace. He studies what can happen if war is no more. He studies the destruction that war brings in the world because he knows that there is something better, a beloved community. When I pour libations, I pour them from my ancestors and my lineage, those in my bloodline and those who have influenced my way of life. When we pour libations, we recognize that we are inextricably tied together in this regard. But I want us to consider a different kind of libation today, one that recognizes that war is a Good Friday in constant repetition. That war means there is not enough water on the planet to be poured out for all of those lives. And yet we try for even just a few of the worst atrocities happening in the world. Libations for the worst wars just in 2023 would include, for the 29,347 in Ukraine, we say Ashe. For the 18,275 in Palestine, we say Ashe. For the 14,841 in Burma, we say Ashe. For the 12,773 in Sudan, we say Ashe. For the 8,017 in Nigeria, we say Ashe. For the 7,874 in Somalia, we say Ashe. For the 7,622 in Burkina Faso, we say Ashe. For the 6,793 in Mexico, we say Ashe. For the 5,802 in Syria, we say Ashe. For the 3,965 in Mali, we say Ashe. For the 3,846 in the Dominican Republic of the Congo, we say Ashe. For the 3,514 in Ethiopia, we say Ashe. For the 3,088 in Yemen, we say Ashe. For the 2,169 in Pakistan, we say Ashe. For the 1,950 in Haiti, we say Ashe. For the 1,829 in Colombia, we say Ashe. For the 1,425 in Israel, we say Ashe. In order for Dr. King to see the Easter vision of the beloved community, he had to go through his own Good Friday. After the bus boycott in Montgomery, buses were integrated, only to find that Black people who no longer followed the segregation standards set the decades before had to face persistent violence, including gunfire from snipers. Dr. King, in depression and despair, which plagued much of his activist life, was invited on a trip to witness the independence celebration of Ghana, the first African nation to break away from the British Empire, and the release from prison of their new Prime Minister, Kwame Nkrumah. It was here that he witnessed a new possibility, a new age, a birth of not just a new nation, but a new way of being in the world. In his first speech after his trip, he said, "Ghana has something to say to us. It reminds us of the fact that a nation or a people can break loose from oppression without violence." Nkrumah says that after he continued to study Gandhi and continued to study this technique, he came to see that the only way was through nonviolent positive action. And he called his program Positive Action. And it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? That here is a nation that is now free, and it is free without rising up with arms and with ammunition. It is free through nonviolent means. We've got to revolt in such a way that after revolt is over, we can live with the people as their brothers and their sisters. Our aim must never be to defeat or humiliate them. The aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community. The aftermath of nonviolence is redemption. The aftermath of nonviolence is reconciliation. The aftermath of violence are emptiness and bitterness. This is the thing I'm concerned about. Let us fight passionately and unrelentingly for the goals of justice and peace, but let's be sure that our hands are clean in this struggle. Let us never fight with falsehood and violence and hate and malice, but always fight with love. Dr. King was never studying war and violence, though he knew it intimately. He was studying the creation of the beloved community, laying out the roadmap. I had the opportunity to study this roadmap as a pastor in Oakland, where I studied the 6 principles of Kingian nonviolence through Oakland's East Point Peace Academy with Kazu Haga. I want to note here that this is nonviolence without a hyphen, which means it is not the absence of violent strategy, but rather it is a way of life. These 6 principles look like this. 1, nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. 2, the beloved community is the framework for the future. 3, attack forces of evil, not persons doing evil. 4, accept suffering without retaliation for the sake of the cause to achieve a goal. 5, avoid internal violence of the spirit as well as external physical violence. And 6, the universe is on the side of justice. None of these are easy, especially in today's climate. But today I want to look at how the universe is on the side of justice in a world filled with war. This requires a deep understanding of Good Friday. I'd like to share from 2 of the greatest teachers I've had the opportunity to sit with. The first teacher was Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese Buddhist monk. After the assassination of Dr. King, he wrote that he fell into despair, thinking, they killed Martin Luther King. They killed us. I'm afraid the root of violence is so deep in the heart and mind and manner of the society. They killed him. They killed my hope. I do not know what to say. He made so great an impression on me. This morning, I have the impression that I cannot bear the loss. But Thich Nhat Hanh also had a deep understanding that who we are extends far beyond this life, and eventually wrote, thinking of Dr. King, when you lose a loved one, you suffer. But if you know how to look deeply, you have a chance to realize that his or her nature is truly the nature of no birth, no death. He committed himself to creating the beloved community that Dr. King described. And I had the opportunity to witness this community through his retreats for people of color at Deer Park Ministry, where he led us through the understandings of the power and transformative nature of our experiences. The other teacher's lesson I want to share is from the Chinese American activist I studied with in Detroit, Grace Lee Boggs. There were 2 things I remember Grace saying with the most frequency. The first was definitely to constantly ask oneself, what time is it on the clock of the world? It's a head scratcher. The second was that the Chinese character for crisis is also the character for opportunity. Grace would say that the crisis of our world, the violence, the inequality, was an opportunity that could only be met by growing our souls. She never defined what it meant to grow our souls. She merely said it was something we'd have to do if we want to create the beloved community, quoting often from Dr. King's radical revolution of values, from being a thing-oriented society to a people-oriented society. So how is the work to build a beloved community possible in this world of so much tragedy? Because the tragedy, the crisis, the Good Friday is essential. It is only out of hardship and our ability to stop avoiding suffering that we begin to reach out for freedom and liberation. One illusion we must confront is that it is only the slave that need seek freedom. But the slavery of others makes slaves of us all. And in this world of war and strife, we need the beloved community. We need freedom more than ever. Freedom from what? Freedom from the demonization of those who think and believe differently from us. Freedom from corporate greed and economic exploitation. Freedom from social media distractions. Freedom from the fear of nature. Freedom from fossil fuels. Freedom from using violence to solve our problems. Not only do we need freedom, we deserve freedom, and we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Why? Because the universe is always on the side of justice. Ashe. I ask you all to join me as we rise to study war no more. As we
extinguish and release this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. For all these we carry in our minds and hearts beyond these walls until we are together again.
And as we leave this place, may we walk together, tied together, all life, as interrelated, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of identity, and live out our divine purpose of creating and building the beloved community. Ashe. Peace.